He's going to be making a short speech arguing for more support for the schooling of Syrian refugees. Since losing the election in 2010, he's remained an MP, but he's been criticised for being almost invisible at Westminster. So what's he been up to? The former Prime Minister has taken part in 127 votes out of 980 since he left number 10. That's 13%, well below the average among MPs. He's spoken in 7 debates, raising the proposed closure of Remploy factories in his constituency and Rupert Murdoch's bid to take full control of Sky B. Murdoch used to be his best friend, but not anymore. So what's he been doing instead? Well, he's the UN's Special Envoy for Global Education. It's a role that involves a fair bit of globetrotting. He earns money for his speaking engagements, and latest figures show he declared payments totalling $1.37 million. His office said that all of that money went directly to charity or to fund his charitable work, that we're not quite sure what then happens to the money after that and what salaries are paid. Of course, Mr Brown is paid a salary himself as an MP of just over £60,000. We're joined by a brace of bloggers, that's what we call them. Mark Ferguson from Labour List and Harry Cole from Guido Fawkes. Welcome to you both.
Morning.
Does it matter how often he speaks in the House? I mean, as Prime Minister, he wasn't really in many votes in the House either. That's Prime Ministers don't really have to go to many. Is that really a proper way of judging his contribution?
I think the people of Kirkcaldy deserve some representation, and it's telling today that Gordon's arrived in Parliament. He's not actually speaking up for his constituents today. He is speaking up for refugees, but he really doesn't understand the point. MP. He's not helping them. He's done a couple of smattering of written answers, and he pops in occasionally, and he's collecting his salary. We're paying him to be an MP. And I might just pick you up on one figure. It's not £1.7 million he's earned while outside. Since 2010, we've crunched the numbers, he's earned £3.6 million. And only
since 2010?
Yes, and only £900,000 of that has gone to charity. He's declared that on his website himself.
Where's the rest of it gone?
Well, it's gone to this mythical thing called the Office of Gordon and Sarah Brown, which is, as far as I can tell, a telephone number, which when you call...
But it does exist, does it not?
It does, yeah, and it's a limited company, but you call it and you can't speak to anyone. If you write about Gordon Brown in the papers, he goes to the Press Complaints Commission and says it's outrageous that someone could imply that he's making money on the outside. He is, because he's funding his lifestyle. He gets to, as you said, globetrot around the world, pretending to still be important, pretending to still be this sort of global figure of any significance.
Unlike Tony Blair?
Yes, well, at least Tony Blair is honest about it. He stood down and said, I'm not going to be an MP, I'm going to go and earn, I'm going to go and coin it.
All right, we haven't got too much time. When he was in Qatar, one of these engagements, and he was asked about as a politician, he then said, well, I'm not a politician. Mentally, is he out of it, out of the House of Commons?
I don't think it's the first time that Gordon Brown has used inelegant language with answering a question. I think we
might be honest.
we all are prone to make...
An ex-politician.
I thought it was very interesting, though, that you had all that information from Public Whip. Have you got the numbers, Andrew, on previous Prime Ministers? Because I've done some number crunching.
Yeah, he's not that different from John Major.
John Major, 20% voting attendance. Margaret Thatcher...
John Major had 20. It's a bit better than Gordon Brown's, but not huge.
Margaret Thatcher spoke, I think, 4 times in Parliament in the 2.5 years.
Well, that was the point of the question I asked him. I asked.
I'm not here to defend John Major. I mean, I was at school when he wasn't a Prime Minister. But
Prime Ministers just don't attend that much, do they? Because they feel they're too senior.
That's not an excuse for something we can right now address, which is that Gordon. He's scared of Nicola. He's scared of Nicola. Labour are scared of Nicola in a by-election in their own backyard. They don't want it, so he's just going to.
Well, I think Labour's done pretty well against the SNP in by-elections.
He's going to spend the next 18 months continuing.
He did one in Cowdenbeath quite well, didn't he?
Very well.
But should he, in your view, should he stand if this is his new life, and I think it's very tough having been. I mean, it used to be Prime Ministers stood down; they were in their 60s or their 70s. We now Prime Ministers cease to be Prime Ministers much younger than it used to be the case. Should he step down at the next election?
I'd be very surprised if Gordon Brown stands again in 2015. But by the same token, I'd be very surprised if David Cameron isn't Prime Minister after 2015, if we see him speaking much from the backbenches or taking part in debates.
If he isn't Prime Minister, I'd be very surprised to see him still in politics.
Yeah.
That's a different issue.
That's a decision
He's
for him.
even younger.
That's a different issue. Do you think Gordon Brown... Well, you obviously
I think he's going, yeah. I think there's no doubt.
You think he's going?
Yeah, and then he'll have to declare his interest properly in the Lords, because you have to...
Have you asked him?
Oh, he's on...
I haven't asked him, because you can't contact him. You can't call him.
Gordon Brown is not a popular figure down here. But is it not true to say that he still has status and authority in Scotland?
OK, I mean, I think he's more popular in Scotland than he is in the rest of the UK. I think that's understandable. He doesn't pop up very often in Scotland either, to be honest, at the moment.
Is he not playing much of a part in the Vote No campaign?
He's, I think, had 2 or 3 appearances in that, but it's not a daily occurrence. I mean, to be fair to Gordon Brown, and those are words you won't hear me saying very often, I can understand why a former Prime Minister might not want to go back to being a backbench MP, but I think the point that's been made is right. His constituents still deserve representation. So if he doesn't want to do the job, he probably should stand aside and let somebody else do it.
We shall see. It's not going to happen before the election. Gentlemen, thank you very much, both of you.
Now, in case Nicola's forgotten, it's time for the answer to our quiz. And